Hello and welcome to the Turn 4 podcast. I am your co-host, Dan Maldonado. If this is your first time listening, welcome. If you're a regular listener, welcome back. Let me introduce you to my co-host, Tim Reiner. Hey, Timmy.
Hey, Dan, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. If I'm the co-host, that makes you the host.
No. Co.
I know.
So we're
podcast with two co-hosts.
That's right.
I love it.
That's right.
All
Co-equal partners. We attempt to give you a fan's perspective on IndyCar racing, the races, news, and notes around the series. Occasionally, we'll have something on F1, IMSA, and NASCAR. We're not insiders, just lifelong fans of IndyCar and motorsports. In this episode, we discuss the year in review.
This episode is the year in review.
Yes, it is. We had a good year. I think it was a very exciting season, lots to talk about. And of course, I'm excited to get in here and start talking about some of this, but I just want to, see how you're doing, Timmy.
I'm doing really well. Spending some time in Ohio. I love Ohio. So I'm back in my home state, south of the border, the Michigan-Ohio battle that's going to take place here in November. I'm talking on the football field between the lines. But yeah, I'm spending some time in Ohio. So it's been good so far.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah. How about
Welcome
yourself,
home, I guess.
Dan? What have you been up to?
Been good. Working and playing and writing all kinds of notes and printing things out. And I don't think I've ever used this much paper in my entire life. So I did graduate to 2 screens now, but
yeah. And if you're watching on YouTube, you just saw the flash of the paperwork. If you're not, we are on YouTube, by the way.
Yes, we are. Find us at turn4podcast.com or Turn 4 Podcast on YouTube. You get to check all of our back episodes and then all future episodes as well.
We got a Twitter handle, right?
Yes, we do. Turn 4 Podcasts 1.
Nice.
No T on that, right? One. No T on that one.
That's what it is. Yeah.
No T on that one.
And then we're on a lot of platforms for the podcast. So if you listen to that, you go
Apple.
to your favorite one. Apple's being one, yes.
Spotify.
Pandora. iHeart, yeah.
And most recently, the Google podcast.
The Google one.
Yeah.
Google's pretty cool.
It is. Dr. Google, Mr. Google, whatever you want to get out of Google, you can get out of Google.
You can get anything out of Google.
Yeah, you can. You can spin it any way you want to.
Even like your documents can just rest on Google. Everything can be in Google.
It's a Google world.
I know. And when you go somewhere, do you Google it so you get the address and you do the directions that way, or do you go elsewhere?
Elsewhere.
See, I'm a Google guy. I don't know.
There you go. He's a Google guy. And you are a directions and planning guy too.
I'm an old school. I just pull out the map. I drive around with the map and I just flip it from page to page. Remember AAA? Think about this. Remember AAA when they had the what was it? The vacation trips, the trip book?
Yeah.
Trip tick. There you go.
That's it. Yeah.
They had the trip tick and they would highlight page by page on the direction you needed to go. And you just sit either in the driver's seat or hopefully in the passenger seat, right? Whichever way, how you did it. If you're traveling alone, you were doing it while you're driving, which
we don't endorse here at the Turn 4 podcast.
Say what?
Which we don't endorse here at the Turn 4 podcast.
No, we don't. We endorse listening while you're driving, and you can flip from page to page. Everybody knows a trip tick. Maybe our young listeners don't, but those
you can be sure that they don't.
Yeah.
So speaking of listeners, if we have any listeners left after this walk down amnesia lane on AAA and triptych and everything else.
Let's hope we still have some left. Hopefully you didn't leave us over that.
Get on to the task at hand. So I appreciate you taking us down that rabbit hole, Timmy.
All right.
We're going to do it just like we normally do. We're going to start out with the championship winning team, which is Chip Ganassi Racing. I think if you rewind to April, I will say confidently that nobody at all saw what was to come from Alex Palou. He had an unremarkable season at Coyne the year prior, finishing 16th in the season championship. In fact, there is nothing to suggest that this was on the horizon for Alex when he suited up for his first race at Ganassi. His best season finish in the junior ranks was second place in Spanish Formula 3 in 2014. But this is not the first time that Chip Ganassi and Mike Hall plucked an Alex out of obscurity. And you know who I'm about to talk about. Alex Zanardi's best season finish in a junior series was second in Formula 3000.
Yeah,
So,
2 Alexes, right?
There you go. Yeah. So first place, season champion, Alex Palou. Alex dropped the mic with a win in Barber. First race of the season. He beat out Will Power, Scott Dixon, and Pato O'Ward in that race. He went on to score victory at Road America and Portland. This along with a second place at Indy, which was a scoring bonanza at Indy due to the double points. Tim, is this what you thought you would see out of Alex Palou joining Ganassi when the season started?
No, I would say without knowing his resume, I wasn't really sure where he was going to end up. Coming from where he came from, and I did a little research just to see where he was at, in 2016 and on through, he had some really good results in some of the other series. In 16, he was on the GP3 series and he ranked 15th overall, which is not very good, right? You kind of look at that and go, that's nothing really to write home about. And then you go to 2017, where he was in the Japanese Formula 3 and the World Series Formula V8. And in the Formula 3, he won 3 races and finished the year 3rd in the championship. So that's pretty good. I like that, right? I'm like, okay, that's good work in that Formula 3 series. And then in the Formula V8, in 3 rounds of the 2017 season, think of this. So 3 rounds, he won 3 poles and a race. And even in this partial season that he did, he finished 10th in the championship. So I look at that, I go, wow, that's pretty good, right?
Yeah,
you just come in, you take poles in all 3 events you compete in, and then you also win one. And then he was still doing some Formula 2 in 2017. He scored some points, and he only did the 2 rounds, and he finished 21st in the championship, but nothing really to write home about there because he only did 2 rounds in that Formula 2. But then you go to 18, right? So let's talk about 18 a little bit because I just want to kind of get into that. He returned to Europe full time, and he was with a GP team as well as he was with the Formula 3 team, and he scored 7 podiums, but ended up 7th in the championship. So he's quick, right? So look at that.
Yep.
You go, okay, he's really quick, which is good to see.
Yeah, he had it coming together with Ganassi. Whatever they saw in the kid or however they decided to make that move, bringing him over from Coyne into this seat, because anybody would covet a seat at Ganassi. It doesn't matter who you are, because they're certainly a premier team. I think you put them, 1A, 1B or A1, A2 with, right next to the likes of Penske, which has always been the benchmark in IndyCar racing. So he had a great season. His resume, like you've just shown, didn't necessarily give those, give you the look into what he was going to be this year, but he was always quick. He raced a lot of different junior series, which I think gives him a background that he can pull on, that he can drive in a series where, with all that is going to come against him, right? So road courses, street courses, short ovals, and then the big oval at Indianapolis. And I think that a lot of those junior series prepared him for that kind of driving in IndyCar. I will give you one thing for him this year. You talked about podiums and you talked about poles. He had 8 podiums this year, including his 3 wins. How many races this season? 16. Do that math. He was on the podium half the time. That's a big deal. That's consistency. That's a big deal. That's being able to put it together in a lot of different courses.
Yeah, that's Dixon-esque, right?
Exactly. Very much so. Speaking of Scott Dixon, finished 4th. Scott has been good for so long. I think that a 4th place finish for the season seems like a bit of a letdown. But it certainly wasn't. Dixon won at Texas, but otherwise he was chasing his young teammate. I've asked you this before, and I want to ask you again, is this changing of the guard, Tim? And I don't mean just for Palou, O'Ward, Newgarden, who's certainly younger, but what do you think?
I think it is. I think in one of our earlier podcasts, I mentioned that, I brought that up.
Mhm.
And I think what you'll see, or what you will not see, you will not see a championship from Dixon, Power, or Castro Neves, which Castro Neves has never done, or Pagano going forward. I think it's the new kids on the block, I'll call them kids. And they're the ones that are going to win these championships.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I also agree with calling them kids too, because these guys are so young. These guys are so young. I think Dixon will definitely score some more wins in the time that he has remaining, and whatever that is. If I were Chip Ganassi, I'd let him race as long as he wanted to. But I think he can score some wins. But I think being able to go at it in terms of a championship winning season again, I think it's going to be very, very tough. I think the level of competitiveness here, the youthful exuberance, that we see there, I think is something to be on the lookout for sure. Continuing a good season at Chip Ganassi Racing, Marcus Erickson. If you think Palou came out of nowhere, what about Erickson? Marcus won, Detroit won, and Nashville, which of course was a shock because he had driven up over the back of Sebastian Bourdais in the opening laps of that. This might put Marcus higher up in the championship discussion for next year, I feel. He only had 2 finishes outside the top 12, which was a 19th at Texas and 28th at Long Beach due to contact.
Yeah, so like I said, after looking at Palou's, his resume, I guess that didn't come as a big surprise after looking back, but hindsight is always 2020, right? So Marcus had a great career coming in as well, a very good career, I should say, with his F1, starting in 2014 and then going, 2015 through 2018, he was with Sauber. And during those years, if you look at the results, he's outperformed his teammate in all of those years. So he's done really well in other series. So I expect him to be a contender from the beginning of the season, actually from right now until the beginning of the season and through it, to win that championship.
Yeah. So do I. Do you remember who his teammate was? It doesn't matter. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm
It was Felipe Nasser.
Yeah. So he was definitely the class of the field there, right? At Sauber. That was pre Alfa Romeo, pre Andretti Autosport rumors.
Yeah, they had a good 2015 year at Sauber. 16, both of those drivers were retained. Marcus did really well, beating out his teammate in a lot of the events early on. Later in the season, he wasn't as good. Actually knocked his teammate out, but he had some good qualifying in those final races as well. And then 17 was just abysmal year for Sauber because, they were in financial trouble. They didn't earn any points. And then in 18 is when Sauber became Alfa Romeo. And then he had Charles Leclerc as his teammate. So, and he competed well against Charles. Marcus even scored points in Austria, Germany, Belgium, US, as well as the Mexican Grand Prix. So he did really well. But in that same year, which was 2018 at the Russian Grand Prix, that's when they announced that he was being replaced. And then shortly thereafter is when he was, in October, he was announcing that he was going to Schmidt Peterson Motorsports.
26th place, Jimmy Johnson. I don't want to seem like I'm piling on Jimmy, because I feel like there's times throughout the season that I have piled on to Jimmy. In a lot of ways, this might have been expected if you look at it in hindsight. Certainly what I thought, scratched my head by not running the ovals. He's certainly not used to the speed that he would be running against this thing in the ovals. But I think that's going to be a piece of this going forward next year. But in terms of where Jimmy J finished this year, what are your thoughts too? Totally expected by me. This is what I thought was going to happen to him.
I would have hoped he would have done better. And so It was not what I expected. Him
Hope
being as good
is
as he
not
is on ovals.
a strategy.
What's that?
Hope is not a strategy.
Hope is not a strategy. You're right. But I think, yeah, you're right. It's not a strategy. I get it. But here's my thought on this seat. If it's anybody else in that seat and you have those results, you're looking for a new ride or you're racing somewhere else. So I know he's got a long-term contract and
Yeah. He
he's
brought money
earned a
and he
spot.
brings notoriety.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
exactly.
Yep. Just as an honorable mention, Tony Kanaan filled in on the ovals for Jimmy Johnson. I expect Jimmy to race those ovals next year. What do you think is going to happen to Kanaan if Jimmy decides to run those ovals next year?
I don't think we see Kanaan at all in the series at all.
You don't think
if
Chip will run?
If it is, it's a one-off at Indy and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. I probably agree with you there. Yeah. I don't see Chip doing 5 cars at Iowa or 5 cars at Gateway or 5 cars at Texas. I don't see that happening.
And if someone else wants to pick him up for those races, whether it's at Carpenter Racing or something, I can see Chip, releasing him and saying, go ahead and do it. Right.
Sure. Yep. Do what you can. Team Penske is your second place team with Joseph Newgarden. I have been saying that this was a very inconsistent season for Team Penske. Similar to what I said for Scott Dixon, I think we come to expect strong results from this organization. But the first win for Team Penske was race 10 at Mid-Ohio with Joseph Newgarden. Then 2 races later, Will Power wins on the Indy Road course. We thought things were going to get rolling for Team Penske from there. I think it certainly did for Joseph Newgarden, but not for the rest of the team. Power and Newgarden were in contention at Detroit, but lost out. Power due to mechanical after the red flag, and Newgarden lost out on a drag race with a Ward, which is just shocking to me. Joseph wins one more time in St. Louis, but this was it for Team Penske. I hold them to a very high standard, Tim. What do you think?
I don't think it was inconsistent. I think it was, we got off to a slow start. We should have won some races in the middle of the season, albeit Detroit. They should have won both of those races. They didn't because of issues.
Yep.
And they came on strong at the end of the season. So I think it was a slow start to being really good. And, if they wouldn't have had those incidences in Detroit, they would have been not talked about for having an inconsistent season.
I agree with you there, and I'm going to say it, and it's memorialized here on video, going up on YouTube and coming into the podcast. I was wrong. Newgarden had 6 podiums, including 2 wins. So, out of 16 races, that's pretty good. The problem we had was 23rd at Barber, 21st at Road America, which was mechanical. I get it, right? And Newgarden lost the championship by 38 points. Which is the difference between where he finished at Road America and where Alex Palou finished at Road America. And I'm going to give credit to Nick Yeoman for that little gem that I pulled out of Nick's Twitter. But I was wrong. I think Newgarden might have been a little bit more consistent than I gave him credit for with his 6 podiums. But otherwise, it was kind of, to me, I just felt very un-Penske-like season.
Yeah. And I think it's the slow start. And then, you did well at the end, but you had some bad races that kind of threw the championship away. But you can't be totally inconsistent and finish second in this championship. There's just too many good teams. There's too many good drivers. So they just got off to a slow start and had a few issues there.
Yeah, I agree with you there. It's funny. So when I put my notes together for this thing, I always start to sort of draft it out and put people where I think they're going to finish. And so I started putting the notes together for this thing. I had Power ahead of Pagenaud. Well, Simon Pagenaud finished 8th in the championship this year, and Power finished 9th. Of course, we know that Simon Pagenaud is moving on. That's already been announced. That announced very quickly that he's moving on to Meyer Shank, and that was, of course, the worst kept secret in the paddock there. But I think I would have expected more out of Simon this year.
I think everybody did, but Father Time, as I talk about, is catching up with him. He didn't have a ride there any longer, so maybe resources weren't as prevalent with him as it was the other drivers. But all in all, he finishes second out of all 4 Penske drivers, that's a good year.
Yeah, he did. Gunther, how old is Simon Page now? He's 37.
I would have guessed 41.
Yeah. So not necessarily father time, but it's getting there. I'm, but yeah, ninth place for Will Power. I guess I would have just assumed that Will finished way ahead of anybody else, but worst finish in IndyCar as a full-time driver. Will is one of the best to come here, and he'll certainly win again. He's 40. I think it was an off season for Will, and I feel like it was an off season for the team for sure. Prior to this, his worst finish of the season was 5th, and he did that 3 times, 2017, 2019, and 2020.
Yeah, so that's a really bad year for Power.
That is a bad year for Power. And we think that Penske's going to shrink down to a 3-car team. So that puts, Newgarden, Power, and McLaughlin to carry the Team Penske flag for next year. I think I'm going to start calling him Scoot. I have to. So Scoot McLaughlin here, Rookie of the Year honors for Scoot, but otherwise I think next year is where we should expect to see him come into his own. He will have a new engineer because they're going to divert some resources over to the new Porsche IMSA program. He'll have a new engineer, and perhaps the organization will tighten the edges as they move on to 3 teams.
So you're calling him Scoot. I'm assuming you went back and watched the replay. And
did not, but it's how I heard it, and I'm just sticking to it.
You're just sticking with Scoot. So Scoot gets Rookie of the Year honors.
Yep.
I guess it was well deserved.
Yeah.
I feel there's another Rookie of the Honor award too that should be given for the other driver. That was, I know there were 3 total drivers, but the one that I think drew the most headlines, and if he would have raced all of the ovals, I think he would have taken that Rookie of the Honors. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do next year and how Scoot can scoot that car around the tracks.
Me too. I think he's definitely one to be on the lookout for. I think he's going to do well.
Yeah.
3rd place team, Arrow McLaren. 3rd place going to Pato Award. 3rd place for this season follows up a 4th place last year, which I didn't realize that. I think without a doubt this kid has it, and it's only a matter of time before he's putting the number 1 sticker on the front of that Arrow McLaren. As this team injects some more McLaren DNA into the program, they should solidify their place as a top team, the likes of Penske, Ganassi, and Andretti.
So based on their finish this year, are they the 3rd best team in IndyCar?
I don't know. That's a good question. Oh, that's a good question.
It is, right? Where do they rank as a team now? Are they still 4th, or have they solidified? They've solidified 4th, but the question becomes, are they part of the top 3 teams? And I would say, based on this year's results, they are not. We need to see more consistency for them to break the top 3.
Yeah.
But they're going to get there.
I think to see some consistency out of that 2nd car, right? Because doing the team here, Pato Award 3rd place, Felix Rosenquist 21st for the season. I think in Felix's defense, right, he missed a couple of races, Detroit 2 and Road America, because he had that crazy crash at Detroit 1 where he looked to have a throttle stuck that wasn't a throttle stuck. So according to the team press statement, but I think next year is where it is. I'm still stumped on this question. I have to go back to this. So if I'm just looking at Aaron McLaren versus Andretti, because I don't think you can put them against Penske or put them against Ganassi. If I'm looking at Aaron McLaren against Andretti, I think they're about as equal as you can get, because you have one rock star and you've got a teammate that's right now kind of underperforming. So Colton Herta is the rock star at Andretti, and you've got 3 teammates that kind of underperformed, right?
True.
So to me, I look at it like 3A, 3B, and the 3A, 3B is interchangeable from week to week.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think they're still 4th. I think after this season, though, next season coming 2022, I think that'll be telling to see where they end up. And I think at that point, I think there's a good argument that maybe they're 2, depending on results.
I think they are. I think they are too. So Andretti, moving into Andretti, I mean, just in the season ranking, right? It's Arrow McLaren ahead of Andretti here when you look at it. So let's talk about Herta in a moment. We know that change is coming to Andretti. Michael spoke about it at midseason, and so far has carried through on that promise. Ryan Hunter-Reay is gone for sure. That was already announced before season ends. No official word on Hinch that we've seen so far, but all signs point to Devlin DeFrancesco, who's an Indy Lights driver this year, filling that seat for Hinch. And then, of course, Hunter-Reay's seat going to Grosjean. So, and part of that reason is Hunter-Reay hasn't won since 2018. He won his championship in 2012 with his best season finish after that, which was in 2018, where he finished 4th. So he has an Indy 500 win in 2014. I wrote these words, I'm going to say it. I feel like Ryan Hunter-Reay stayed too long in this ride. And I think it's very likely because of a personal affection Michael has for Ryan Hunter-Reay. He's been the longest of anybody, and they shared a lot of success together. And I think it just clouded Michael's ability to say, see you, dude.
Yeah, he hasn't won since 2018. That's a long time to stay in an Andretti car and not be successful. So
yeah,
the championship is even longer. Wow, that's a lot of years back, 2012. And then you get into the 500. It would have been nice to see Ryan win a couple more of those, and I think he was competitive in a lot of those, and luck just didn't go his way. I think just this past year he locked the brakes up, and or the brakes were soft and he went through the pit lane too fast. And so they had stop and goes for that. So, or drive-through penalties, whatever you want to call it. But anyway, you may be right on that. I think they had a really good bond, and that bond kept Ryan around a little longer than normally does for someone who's not performing.
Yep. 10th place, Alexander Rossi, disappointment, plain and simple. I believe Rossi should have gone to Penske when he had the chance. I said that a couple of podcasts ago. I still believe that. I don't think he's a great teammate, right? A couple of pods I've listened to make me feel like he's going to be the first line of friction among the full body of teammates, next year's teammates I'm talking about, which includes the Andretti stable of drivers, along with 2 strong personalities at Shank. So let me unpack that for a sec. So I listened to, and I've mentioned it before, I listened to a lot of these other podcasts. Our podcast is based on a fan's perspective, right? We're not insiders. So we try to get a little bit more information listening to other insiders' podcasts. In each case where they talk about it, it's going to be interesting to see the team dynamic next year, Alexander Rossi, et cetera, right? Another podcast, it's going to be interesting to see the team dynamic next year amongst the Andretti and Shank Racing, Alexander Rossi, et cetera. Makes me feel like, especially if things aren't going well, that not the best guy to have as a teammate. That's completely unfair. I'm not an insider. I'm a fan. I'm looking at it from a fan's perspective. Don't at me, Alexander Rossi people, but it's how I see it.
Yeah, and I don't see it that way. I think Rossi is construed to be that way just because he's a quiet individual.
Yeah,
I don't think he's going to be malicious or he's going to not be a good teammate because he's not winning. I think he's going to have to look at that and look inside himself and go, okay, what can I do to be better? And I think he'll do that. And I think he'll represent his sponsors. He'll represent Team Andretti really well. Could it be an exit year for Rossi? Maybe, if he doesn't do well. That could be the scenario, but I don't think there's going to be any thing that even outwardly or inside the team that he would do to make it a hostile environment, I'll call it.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And I know my words are a bit harsh, but I mean it more from just the perspective of, even if you're somebody who isn't being malicious or isn't really being, outwardly dramatic or outwardly aggressive or whatever it is. I think, having kind of a sullen sort of personality and sort of, maybe not jealousy is the best word. I can't think of anything else, but Grosjean's going to get a bunch of attention there.
Mm-hmm.
That Colton Herta is going to get a bunch of attention there. Right. And I think that even though Alexander has this very quiet sort of demeanor to him, I think you do what you do when you do this because, right, there's a certain level of ego there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's going to be the difficult. And then you've got Helio Castroneves, who certainly sucks all the air out of the room. You got another guy like Simon Pagenaud, who's very articulate, very smart, is going to make his presence known. He's known to be a developer of cars. So what does that mean for somebody like a Alexander Rossi? Because if you're Devlin DeFrancesco, you're just going to sit in those meetings and you just got to shut up and listen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's it. But if you're an Alexander Rossi, where do you fit in that equation?
Yeah, I can't see that he wants to be the number 3 guy. And that's what you're pretty much saying he is on that team. He's the number 3 guy. And how does that work with his ego?
Yeah.
And I think how that works with his ego, if he gets good results, he's not going to be worried about it at all because he'll be shuffled right up to the number 1 person on that team.
Yeah. Yeah. Wins cure all ills, right?
Yep.
God forbid, however, that Devlin DeFrancesco falls backwards into a win before Alexander Rossi. That is it.
That would be something to see.
Yeah. Ryan Hunter-Reay, we already talked about a lot. Finished 17th place for the season. 20th place for Hinch. Hosed. That's how I see it. That's how I'm going to see it. I know you see it otherwise.
You think he got hosed?
Yes, I think he's getting hosed.
No, he's not.
Yes, he is.
No, you got to look at results, and results cure everything. You just said wins cure everything. When was his last win? I don't even know. I'd have to go way back and look.
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
I'm going to put an asterisk on that. He was hosed, period. Plain and simple. Out of a job. He gets into this Andretti car. I know we're going to agree to disagree on this thing.
So at the beginning of Andretti, you said we're going to talk about Herta in a minute. Did you save Herta for the last one? Last
so let me. Yeah, I did. I almost went right by him, man. I almost started talking about Rahal because I'm equally passionate there. Without a doubt, Rahal is your next championship. Is your next champion at Andretti Autosport? Herta is. Yes. What did I say?
Rahal.
My God, I got to do some better editing or I'm just going to leave it in and just let these guys know I am a knucklehead. Haven't a clue what I'm talking about.
Oh, that was good. I like it. Because you said in the silly season, Rahal wasn't leaving Rahal. And then all of a sudden you just said Rahal's going to be the number 1 guy at Andretti. But I won't repeat it. I'm
breaking news here, ladies and gentlemen. Breaking news.
We're talking about Herta.
Yeah. Herta is your next champion at Andretti Autosport. And this is going to be the most successful driver ever to wear the Andretti Autosport badge. Mark it down. I also believe that Colton will follow Michael to Europe in F1 when that deal finally comes together, which that of course had a lot of chatter this week. Colton had 3 wins this year, and I feel like he was in contention most weekends. I say most because if he wasn't in contention, the results were a bit of a disappointment. He's the opposite of the Ganassi philosophy of finish the best you can always. Not a win, then finish second, and so on. If you remove his wins and the races he DNF'd due to contact or mechanical, he's an 11th place finisher. But 5 podiums, including 3 wins. What killed his season? 22nd place at Barber, 22nd place at Texas won, 16th at Indy, with the double points, 19th at Nashville, where he dominated, and 18th at Gateway.
He's perfect for Team Andretti.
Oh,
And
well,
and here's why he's
for sure.
perfect. He drives just like Michael Andretti used to do, Mario Andretti. If you're not winning, you're in
crashing.
the wall, you're crashing, or you had a mechanical. That's just how they drive. That's how they drove, and that's how Herta drives. So I think it's a great marriage. I think he's going to do awesome. You mentioned he's the next champion at Andretti Autosport.
Yeah.
But my question is that next year? You didn't give me a time frame.
Next year. Let's save it for when we do that podcast, when we do our picks for next year. But he's the next Rossi, Grosjean, DeFrancesco, right? That's your choices outside of Colton. I'm taking Colton as the first champion out of those four total.
Yeah. And if you think it's next year, I know we're not going to talk about it. If you think it's next year, then our conversation about the teams and where they are ranked kind of goes out of the water, right? Because Andretti is easily in the top three. Okay.
Yep. Can I move on to Rahal now?
You can. Feel free. I just didn't want to miss Herta.
Me neither. That would have been a drag. We'd have had to do this thing all over again.
I'm glad I'm here for you.
Exactly. That's a co-host, baby. Co-host.
Yeah.
Rahal Lennerman Lanigan Racing, for a team that didn't post any wins this year, this is not a bad spot to be in. I think particularly for Graham. We've been saying for a while that qualifying has been the Achilles heel for this team. Fact. Two things have happened since the real top days of this team. First, remember, and I'm talking about he was winning with all that Steak and Shake. Remember, he was winning and had the Steak and Shake car and they had the crazy body kits and all that.
Yeah, I remember.
So first, the move to the common aero kit. So once the aero kits came off, kind of a little bit of a downer for this team. They were the class of the field when they had the Honda aero kit. Second, the aero screen, right? I believe
50 pounds is 50 pounds, right?
We're almost to a point where Timmy's taking his glasses off, listeners.
I haven't taken them off yet.
I believe a lot of teams have struggled to come to grips with the difference to the setup and perhaps to the change in driving style with the aero screen. What do you want to tell me about the aero screen, Tim?
It's 50 pounds. Everybody has it. It shouldn't make a difference, and it doesn't.
Shouldn't.
And it doesn't.
It shouldn't.
It does not.
I'm going to put an asterisk on that one too, because I got more later. Takuma Sato. Well, Graham finished 7th for the season. Like I said, I think for how they generally qualify, which is not great. They always seem to be in contention. I think that's a pretty good finish for Graham. I think that's something that he can build on next year. That's going to be an entirely new team next year around him with 2 new teammates, one new teammate for sure, and then another new teammate consistently. So this is going to be a very different team next year as it moves to a 3-car team. So, and I'll kind of elaborate there. So 11th place for Takuma Sato, which again, that to me was surprising as well. That Sato finished 11th for the season. It's already been announced that he's leaving the team. No news yet where he will go. Very likely that he's going to land at Coin, but that's not finished yet. And breaking news today, my guy, I'm going to get a Jack Harvey shirt. I'm going to wear that Jack Harvey shirt next year, every podcast. Don't hold me to that, please. It was confirmed today that Jack Harvey will be in the number 45 with Hy-Vee sponsorship. I think the only surprise here is that it's the number 45 and it's with Hy-Vee. I think you and I, Tim, thought that this was the 3rd car that Hy-Vee would have been sponsoring, and considering either Ferrucci, Askew, or Lundgaard. Instead, it's the 30 now that's in play, right? We thought it was the 45 that was in play, that Hy-Vee sponsorship was settled for the 45, or for the 3rd car, I guess is what we're saying. But I guess that's not the case. It seems like the 3rd car now is the one that's in play, and the 3rd car being the number 30.
That is correct.
Hope I'm saying that right. Also, too, prior to us going to this podcast here, word from the Jack Harvey press conference where they announced the Jack Harvey signing and that it was the Hy-Vee car. Did you see it, by the way? The black and red livery?
No, how was it?
Nice. It's very nice. It's very, very nice.
I'll have
Nicely
to
done.
check
They
it out.
said this is one of 3 high deliveries for next year. So it's really nice. And it doesn't look anything like the ones that they ran this year. So
I
it's really nice.
seriously need DHL to do something with their livery. So
I know.
I know we're on the wrong
I know.
team
Yeah,
and
yeah.
all that, but I
I'm
just
with you.
need to put it out there.
Yep, I'm totally with you.
I'm speaking for the
and
fans.
And so is the Twitterverse, right? They also said the same thing, that they had seen Ryan Hunter-Reay in that car for so long, they need to change that. So anyhow, word from the Jack Harvey press conference is that the number 30 is fully funded, which means that the team is free to put in that car whoever they want. It doesn't mean that the driver has to be a driver that brings a budget. So that's good news all around for
it's great
Rahal.
news.
Yeah,
it's great. It's just, and I've talked about this, it just shows you what that team can do to bring in sponsorships, but it also shows the strength of the series.
I agree 100%. 100% agree. Yep. Moving on, Ed Carpenter Racing, kind of a disappointing year after Renus's win and subsequent injury. It never got good for Renus after he broke the collarbone in the bike accident. So I don't know where this team is right now. I feel like I've been saying it, their focus is Indy. That's it.
Yeah, I think so too. We'll see where they sort of fall out or fall in or what they do on that side. But I need to go back. You moved off Rahal, Letterman, Langen too fast.
Yeah.
So we talked about number 1 car, number 2. Well, we talked about 2 and 3 cars. So is it just assumed that Graham's car is number 1, or does Jack move to the number 1 car in that team?
I think anybody can say what they want to there, but when your name is on the building, you're the number 1 car.
All right. And I think that's fair. I just, from a results perspective, I'm just wondering how that's going to shake out next year. So that's something to look forward to see how that team, how that transpires with Graham and Jack and whoever's in that 3rd car.
Was it the Portland podcast where we had the full breakdown of Graham Rahal and that team this year, where we talked about Graham's last win and how Takuma has really outshined Graham in that team? I hope the best for Graham Rahal. I like the personality. I like him. I've rooted for him since he was a Newman Haas driver, right, back in the day, long time ago. But I'm also a Jack Harvey fan too. I'm a big fan of this signing. I want to see him do very well here. We'll see how he does if he's outshining Graham Rahal at his own team. It will be interesting, and it'll be interesting if they put someone like Ferrucci in that 3rd car. That's a big personality, man. A lot of personality going on there. So it doesn't sound like it. Kevin Lee in Kevin Lee's podcast says that it's Christian Lundgaard, who he had the one-off at the Indy road course in the late summer race at Indy, qualified like 4th or 5th or something. And I think the paddock stunned Rahal team, with that qualifying effort. So I think that, according to what Kevin Lee says, that's Christian's team. He's kind of the first domino on that, right of first refusal, maybe, is how that seems to me. But if he doesn't take that right, I don't know who goes in there.
Yeah, I think you sent me a tweet on that.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
That's going to be an interesting, I can't wait to see how that all plays out. I'm really, really interested on, where that Rahal, Letterman, Langen team goes, and what happens with that 3rd seat. Because you put Ferrucci in there, they're battling for a championship. They should be championship contenders, but this is
battling
the
for
season
podium
in review.
I just want to see them battle for podium. I'll take a battle for championship if that's what it comes, but I just want to see them battle for podium. And right now, I don't see that out of them. I don't see that out of them. Can I move on to Ed Carpenter now?
Yeah, I think we did that already, but yeah, let's do it real quick. So
Ed Carpenter Racing, right? Renus VK 12th place, Connor Daly 18th, the part-time oval only Ed Carpenter 27th.
Yeah.
Renus is signed up again for next year. I think Daly is TBD. We'll see what happens to them next year. So Meyer Shank Racing, with 13th place Jack Harvey and 22nd place Elio Castroneves. I think first you have to start with the Indy 500 win for Elio. Historic win. Yep, joining the four-time winners club there.
Totally really elevated that team.
Totally elevated that team.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think that gave that team a boost of confidence.
That's like in grade school when you let those balloons off with little notes and one gets in the jet stream and goes all the way over to Europe, and you get a letter back from somebody in Germany that said, hey, I got your balloon with your little piece of paper. I'm writing you back. We had that happen in grade school.
You did?
Yes.
A balloon let off in Toledo somewhere, made it to Europe?
Made it to Europe, somehow got caught in the jet stream, and we got a letter back from Europe. That's what winning the Indy 500 is like for this team.
I like the analogy, and I can't disagree with it. Like,
and who would ever thought it would happen?
Made it to Europe?
Yeah, no one ever would think that would happen.
Nope, nobody. Fourth time, and to me, I think this really gets to the essence of the Indy 500. I think it's anyone's race to win that, right? I mean, the odds are better. Penske, Ganassi, Andretti, but I think it's anybody's race. All 33 guys, they line up, and I think it could come from anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I think Elio, proved that. So Jack Harvey finished 13th. I think, disappointed for Jack this year not to get a win for this team. He's off to Rahal. We've already talked about that. 22nd, Elio Castroneves. Elio in this ride full time next year. He's going to line up next to Simon Pagenaud. And like I said, I'm more interested in the dynamic mixing with the Andretti drivers and those engineering meetings. Because that Elio and Simon are gonna get along just fine. They were good teammates at Penske.
Oh yeah, totally. So, that team's going to be dynamic.
I want to be a fly on the wall.
Or dynamite.
Dynamite. Yeah,
dynamite.
That's right. So Dale Coyne Racing. Dale continues to be the springboard for drivers. Grosjean will drive full-time next year, which means he will drive the ovals, and he will do so for Andretti Autosport. No wins this year for Coyne, but it didn't matter with all the attention that was afforded to Roma Grosjean, who finished the season 15th. I expected him to get a win before the season was out. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. Just didn't happen.
Do you agree reluctantly? Because I feel like you kind of agree reluctantly.
Well, I was gonna make another comment, but I'll keep that to myself for right now.
Are you gonna hang on to that one? Why? It's just me and you. It's just us.
I think it was very optimistic. He's driving for Coyne, so that's makes me a little pessimistic.
There's been wins at Coyne.
What's that?
There's been wins at Coyne.
I know there's been wins. I agree. There's been wins. So the record book shows it. So it could have happened. It was a long shot. I think at the end of the day, if I look back in retrospect, I go, it was probably a long shot for him to win a race. He's a hot shoe, though.
Yep. He's going to do well next year. Ed Jones finished 19th. No word if Ed in the Sebastian Bourdais Sealmaster Honda.
That's right.
Will continue in this team, and that might have to do with some uncertainty around Vassar Sullivan's plans for 2022 if they're going to continue to be a partner with Dale Coyne.
I think you get a whole new lineup there. I don't think Ed's back.
I like that. You're breaking some more news, Timmy.
Yeah, well, I'm just going off of intuition. I didn't read Twitter today, so who knows what the latest news is.
Yeah, me neither. I looked at it, but there's, that's not the sexy news, and that's certainly not the news of the day. It's Jack Harvey. So,
and those video intros of Jack Harvey, I was like, ooh.
Were you disturbed by that? Like, did you feel that was self-serving? Why?
Yeah, it's like the LeBron James move of the year. Like, where's he gonna play next? And I'm like, it's Jack Harvey, everybody. If he would have. Oh, seriously, like if he was going to Team Penske, I would have been like, bam, way to do that. Like, that's perfect for that video intro. But everybody knew he was going to Rahal, Letterman, Langen. And you look at it and it's Sunday and there's this video that comes across and I'm like,
there it is. Glasses are off.
And I'm like, why are you doing this? This just doesn't make any sense to me. But anyway, he did it. And he ended up where we all thought he was going to be, just with the 45 car instead of the 30 car.
Yep. I'm going to leave it at that. I have nothing to add for once. I have nothing to add. Moving on to AJ Foyt Racing, unless you want to go off on Jack Harvey a little bit more, but I'm going to move on to Foyt. I don't know what to say here that I haven't already. I hate it for this team. I hate it for AJ Foyt's racing team to be a field filler. So much promise with a strong preseason, and especially with the arrival of Sebastian Bourdais, and then finishing 5th at the first race at Barber. Finished the season in 16th place for the season championship. He is moving on. It seems he will not be full-time in IndyCar, but will be a full-time driver in IMSA. It sounds like he's going to be in the second Chip Ganassi Cadillac prototype as a full-time driver there, and then he'll do some part-time driving, probably for AJ Foyt. And then what happens in that second car, if it's Dalton Collette, who finished 23rd, bit of trivia here for Dalton. He's now assumed the distinction of having the lowest finishing average in IndyCar history. His average finish was 21.31 versus Takuma Sato, who was the previous holder of this distinction at 20.59. And this, of course, was sourced off of Twitter through Pit Lane Parlay. So, dude, thank you for that bit of news. I didn't know that we were tracking such a stat, but nonetheless, all that means is Dalton Kellett is destined for an Indy 500 win or two in the next several years, if he follows in the footsteps of Takuma Sato. I love that look.
Yeah, if he does follow in the footsteps.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say.
There's nothing to say here.
Yeah,
it's a drag.
Yeah, if you ever watch NFL Primetime?
Not if I can help it.
Well, if you ever get a chance to watch it, they always have these segments. It used to be You Got Jacked Up, which was a segment where they would watch people
get smashed to the ground. Yep.
Yeah. But this is a different part of that segment. And sorry, this is a come on, man.
Yeah.
Remember they do the come on, man?
Yeah.
Like to Larry and AJ, come on, man. Let's get this together and let's have some good results. That's what I want to see.
So do I. I agree with you there. Carlin Racing. This team hasn't found its footing in IndyCar. I don't know why. And I say that because this team is definitely a powerhouse in many of the junior series in Europe. Not only that, but there has been a ton of very high profile drivers that are now high profile drivers that have come through Carlin's teams at one point or another. And I'll give you some examples. And this is a very short list of all of the drivers that have found themselves wearing Carlin's colors at one point, right? Daniel Ricciardo, Sebastian Vettel, Carlos Sainz, Lando Norris, George Russell, Will Power, Joseph Newgarden, Robert Wickens, Takuma Sato, and Kevin Magnussen. So Max Chilton says he needs a teammate next year. I don't know if Max Chilton's even going to have a ride next year. Mm-hmm. It sounds like Carlin may pack it in and finish out his foray into IndyCar. I think that's what it sounds like
in Europe,
that they're just closing up. Yeah. And just continue to focus on that in Europe.
Yeah, I guess my hope would be they pull some money out of the European series and then put it into IndyCar, because there's a lot of fanfare around IndyCar right now. I think we're going back towards its heydays, and it might be the wrong time to step out if that's what they're thinking of doing.
Yeah. We could go back, and it's certainly not the premise of this pod, but if you go and you look at it and you say, if Max Chilton, and he has a budget, I believe his father is a co-owner in that team, and then his father helps provide some budget there. Where does he go? I don't really know of what viable seats are available right now. And it could be Dale Coyne, I guess. If he's got a decent budget, he can move on over to Coyne and take one of those seats that are available, or something else. You just don't know what's there. And then I'm just going to roll through this one real quick before I get to the honorable mentions. But Hookos Racing full-time next year. We're just going to wait and see what Kellum Eilad is able to do for next year. Honorable mentions. 24th place, Santino Ferrucci, your guy. Why isn't he a lock for that third seat at Rahal, Timmy?
He was younger than what he is now, and so that's still hurting him.
Could be. Yeah, carrying a little bit of baggage there.
Yeah, it's not his results, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Yeah, so he has a lot of fanfare, and he does like, he's big, he's there. He's definitely not going to get overlooked in anything, but there's something there that's kind of holding him back in terms of what, somebody wanting to sign him full time. And he spent more time, I think, in that Rahal car auditioning for a full-time gig more than anybody. And there is something there that is doing it for him. And I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get some stats here for him. So 5 starts this year, 4 top 10s, 2 laps led, right? 2020, 14 starts, 1 top 5, 5 top 10s, 4 laps led. 2019, 17 starts, 3 top 5s, 7 top 10s, 118 laps led. Give him some consistency in his own car.
Yeah.
The security of having a contract behind him, and maybe he will do something right.
Yeah.
What's his personality like? Is he somebody that, right, is going to represent the team and sponsors and everybody else appropriately? I think that's the question, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
It's good though.
Everybody has a bad hair day though, and everybody does stupid things when they're young. And I think we kept to stop judging him through the lens of yesterday, right? So give him a chance to move on. So honorable mention, 42nd place, Kevin Magnussen. Yes, I'm insane. Subbing for the injured Felix Rosenquist at McLaren, finished 6th at Road America. Here's my favorite part. He led more laps in an IndyCar in one race than Alexander Rossi. And I didn't put him at the top for any reason other than
this is a long list.
Yeah, it is. Alexander Rossi, Ryan Hunter-Reay, Scoot McLaughlin, Jack Harvey, David Malone, Oliver Askew, Santino Ferrucci, Ed Carpenter. I'm not even going to pick on Marco Andretti. Dalton Collette, Juan Montoya. I don't know why that's on here. Tony Kanaan, Jimmy Johnson, and James Hinchcliffe.
Well, Marco and Juan are on there because they're in the Indy 500.
Yeah, so they were one-timers, right? But think about that list. The guy ran one race this season in right, pinch hitting for Felix Rosenquist, and he actually led laps. And somebody like Rossi, Hunter-Reay, McLaughlin, Harvey, even Ed Carpenter or Tony Kanaan didn't manage to do.
Yeah.
Kevin Magnussen is not bound for, and I got to give credit here. This is Chad Smith on Twitter at Chad200. So thank you for that one, Chad. We appreciate it. He is not bound for IndyCar. I, at one point in this season, thought that maybe we would have seen him in a third Aero McLaren car. He is not bound for IndyCar. He's going off to the Peugeot series in IMSA, is what his plans are.
It's interesting to look at that stat and go, wow, that's incredible. He got at the front of the field by not pitting, correct, and led the strategy that he led. Yeah, it was strategy. So, and that was on a yellow flag, I believe, but it's still interesting to look at, and you'd love to see Kevin come over, another F1 guy. Roman's over here now, so we'd love to see him in the series. But that, I don't know. That's, if you just look at the stat, you go, whoa, that's big.
Yeah.
And then you go, okay, everybody on the list had a really bad season then. That's what you would assume, right? You all had a horrible season. So, which isn't the case for all of them.
No, it's not the case for all
what I was saying.
Yeah. I would agree with you there. Other news. IndyCar has started putting pen to paper on the next gen chassis. What's your wish list for the next gen chassis, Timmy?
Oh, you're asking me what my wish list is? Multiple chassis.
Do you like that idea?
Yeah, I don't like spec car race. Well,
No, I'm
say
saying,
don't
okay,
like
so you want to see multiple manufacturers.
manufacturers
Like the old
and
days.
yeah.
Okay.
I want to see multiple manufacturers making chassis that are based on, what IndyCar puts as the rules for that.
Yeah. I got excited when you said that because I had seen something and I couldn't find it again. I was looking for it where somebody was sort of suggesting that Dallara could put together a couple of chassis ideas that would be differentiated somewhat, and that would give it a little less spec feel when you're looking at the cars for next year. I don't know how you do two cars that are differentiated enough that wouldn't have a performance advantage over the other. So, I don't see that as happening. So I agree with you though. I just want a sexier looking car. I don't think this car is sexy by any stretch of the imagination. I see images today of the 90s Indy cars, and I still admire the look of those cars. The Lola, the Reynard, the Penske's, even the Eagle and the Swift chassis. To me, they are all still good looking cars.
Yeah, they're not frumpy. They're sleek machines, well engineered, crafted. Tons of wind tunnel testing on those. They're good looking cars. And
very refined.
And the chassis today doesn't look horrible. When you had all the body components on it before, it was really bad, but they've come a long way.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of tweaking it, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, to see different manufacturers would be great.
Yeah. Rumors have a third engine manufacturer coming to the series. This is more like a retread rumor because it happens all the time. I think at some point you can almost start calling it urban legend, really, because it's been around so long. But nonetheless, there is a hot rumor that started almost immediately after the checkered flag dropped at Long Beach that Toyota will be making their way back into the series. And I think I said that would be the manufacturer most likely to be the next engine manufacturer in the series. I think I said that in our Silly Season podcast. And I still say that. And the reason why it makes a ton of sense to me is because Roger Penske owns the #1 volume Toyota dealership in the US, Longo Toyota in Elmont, California. So if anybody can convince Toyota that now is a good time to get back into this series, it's Roger Penske. And now is a good time to be back in this series, right? We're going to talk about NBC ratings here in a second, but ratings are good. Competition is great. And I think now is the time to pull this in.
Yeah, I think so too. I think now is the time. And I think with the new engine package is the time to come into the series. So I think that's, what this rumor is all about. So I think it's a little more than a rumor. And I think you'll see Toyota here in 2023, right? Because that's when the new package comes out.
Yep, 23. If not Toyota, who would you like to see?
Alfa Romeo.
Really?
I'd love to see Alfa Romeo. Yeah.
Okay.
Energize their move to the US with their passenger vehicles. I'd love to see Chrysler involved again. And so that's who I'd like to see. That's a premium brand too. Bring a premium brand in. That would be great.
Stellantis.
I know it's Stellantis.
Right.
But being Metro Detroit, I still call it Chrysler every once in a while.
I know. Yeah, me too. It's the same thing.
Yeah. So I'd like to see a premium brand. And so that's why I'm sort of leaning towards Alfa Romeo. I'd love to see Porsche, but I don't see that ever happening, or not in the near future.
Yeah, so, I think if they didn't announce that already, I don't think that's going to happen, right? When they did the IMSA announcement, I don't think they're going to come here. Yeah. They didn't do that already.
Maybe brand the Toyota Lexus. Maybe Lexus is coming. Maybe that'd be cool to see.
Well, because Infinity, right, started in the IRL at the time. It was the Infinity engines. It wasn't Nissan That was the branding there. So
yeah,
it was Infinity on Oldsmobile, right? So
yeah.
Zach Brown, the McLaren CEO, proclaimed that IndyCar is as competitive as F1. I don't know that the headline was necessarily the premise of what Zach was talking about. But if I just consider the headline, I don't think IndyCar is as competitive as F1. I would tell you that IndyCar is exponentially more competitive than F1. And I think you can say that because you can watch an F1 race and pretty much know it's going to be Lewis Hamilton or Max Verstappen, unless they take each other out. That's your winner's going to come from one of those two guys. Maybe somebody like a Leclerc or Sainz or Norris or whatever, but and it's been like that for a few years. But in IndyCar is anyone's guess from race to race. And you always have Ganassi, Andretti, Penske, and now Era McLaren. But those teams represent 50% of the field.
That's a good point.
Right? Those are 13 or 14 guys that could win this thing any Sunday on the calendar.
I'm in agreement with you 100%.
That article,
in case our listeners were wondering.
Yeah, there you go. That article came from speedcafe.com. So I appreciate that. NBC Ratings, 15 races. I don't know why they announced this as 15 races, because for some reason they're taking the second Detroit race out. I do remember there was some trouble getting that started. Remember, I thought it was tennis, but it was lacrosse or something like that, whatever it was.
Yeah, there was something
like
on. I remember that because I was texting you going, what's going on here?
Yeah. And they averaged 1.223 million viewers across those 15 races on average, which was better than 2020 by 19%. And then 10% increase over 2019. So like we said about Toyota, now's the time to get into this series. This is where viewership is up. More races on NBC, the network, than last year and certainly the year before. You got 1 or 2 races on USA, and you've got the one streaming. Toronto's going to stream on Peacock next year exclusively. But you got more viewers. You got a lot of interest in this series. Now there's talk about a Drive to Survive kind of series coming on for IndyCar. So we'll see how that looks and see if that does anything to move the needle.
It's a good sign.
So it is a good sign. Further news. Here's the asterisk. Of the big 4 IndyCar teams, Penske, Ganassi, Andretti, and Era McLaren, only 4 drivers have won a race before the aero screen, but have no wins since the aero screen. Let me tell you who they are. Alexander Rossi, not put at the top of this list for any other reason other than he's Alexander Rossi. Ryan Hunter-Reay, James Hinchcliffe, unfair, and Marco Andretti.
As I said earlier, the aero screen does not have anything to do with it, but it's a good stat. I like it.
Brian, whose Twitter handle is at Indy, or is at 500 Indy 1911. I mentioned a bit of this in Long Beach. I mentioned a bit of this earlier today too, but Brian mentions in subsequent replies to this tweet that Rossi has been vocal about how much it changed the car. And Simon Pagenaud mentioned it as well, has been critical of it as well. So I think there's a balance issue here. And the only one at Andretti who's figured it out is Colton Herta, because he's a future champion.
Well, they all have the same, I shouldn't say same engineers. They all have engineers that talk to each other. So I think if Colton's figured it out and his engineer figured it out, you would pass that along to the other.
Yeah, because they're all Andretti drivers on that list.
Yeah. And you look at Long Beach and you look at how they did in the first practice, they were all up there really quick. And they qualified okay, but they were up there really well in practice 1. So you're right. Colton figured it out, and we should all be talking and figuring out how that can work for all the drivers.
Yeah. Well, that wraps up this episode of the Turn 4 podcast. I want to say again, congratulations to Alex Palou and Chip Ganassi Racing on winning the season championship. The season is over, but we will continue to bring you content on a bi-weekly cadence. Be sure to subscribe using your favorite podcast app. If you like the show and listen on Apple Podcasts, be sure to leave us a review and engage with us on Twitter. Turn 4 Podcasts 1. No T on that one. There's a 1 there. Or our website, turn4podcast.com. I'm going to tell you, I'm Dan Maldonado, also known as the Knucklehead.
And I'm Tim Reiner.
There you go. Good night, everybody.
Good night.